Well, good morning. Daniel 1 verse 9 reads, "And God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who assigned your food and your drink. For why should he see that you are in a worse condition than the youths of your own age? So you would endanger my head with the king." Then Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of the eunuchs had assigned over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, "Test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance and the appearance of the youths who eat the king's food be observed by you, and deal with your servants according to what you see." So he listened to them in this manner, and he tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days it was seen that they were better in appearance and fatter in flesh than all the youths who ate the king's food. So the steward took away their food and the wine that they were to drink, and gave them vegetables. Now, you can imagine that Daniel and his friends, in this great city of Babylon, the heart of the empire, surrounded by great architecture, statues, symbols of military might, that these 4 young men must have felt incredibly insignificant, incredibly far from home, grappling with these different challenges that they're wrestling out. And yet there is something that changes the whole landscape as we read this passage. It's the first 5 words that I read. And God gave Daniel favor. And there are 3 ways in which we see God giving Daniel favor in this particular story. The first is that the officials desire to listen to Daniel and his friends. There's a desire, even though they're nervous about doing what Daniel and his friends suggest, there is something in them that says, we do want to actually do what you have suggested. The second example of favor is that God acts supernaturally for these young men. They're on this low-calorie diet of vegetables and water, and yet what is written is that they end up after 10 days looking fatter than those who've been eating the meat and the wine from the king's table. That's supernatural. But the third sense that we see all the way through Daniel's life is the sense that I really want to highlight for you this morning. It's that God saw them, that God looked on them, that God delighted in them, that his favor was on them, not just in acting on their behalf, but in loving them. God was so for them. He was full of compassion and heart towards them. God had put them where they were. God had mighty purposes that he wanted to work out through these young men who in that moment must have felt so insignificant. I wonder whether you ever feel insignificant. I wonder whether you ever wonder, how do I stack up in my culture and the greatness of everything I see? Maybe you feel like you've blown it, like you're not sure that your life can amount to much, that it will amount to much. Well, take heart, because God delights to take those in insignificant people and insignificant places, and to use them for his glory. Think about Bethlehem, where a Messiah was to come, far from Rome, the heart of the empire, far even from the temple of Jerusalem. God working out his plan to bring his Messiah, his chosen one, to Israel, born into poverty, insignificance. We don't even know most of his first 30 years. And yet, at the moment of his baptism, it's like God the Father bursts out, unable to contain himself. "This is my Son, my beloved Son, in whom I'm so well pleased." He shouts over Jesus, and the crowd that is standing around hear him. I believe God wants to speak over you this morning of his love for you, his joy, his delight, his favor. The fact even that you are here asking questions of his word, reading his word, spending time in God's presence, the fact that you're doing these things is a sign of God's favor in your life. And so as you start the day, I want to encourage you to put out of your mind thoughts of insignificance or greatness or comparison, but rather turn your attention to the love of God. And as you bow your hearts to Jesus this morning, receive the Father's love, receive the Father's affirmation, receive the Father's accolade. He delights in you and He is pouring out His love on you. So take that into prayer for a few minutes, receive His love, delight in what He's doing, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day.